Hi, welcome back to Horns High Studios for another episode of 666 Seconds of Metal. That means we're going to be talking about metal for 666 seconds or less. That's 11 minutes and 6 seconds, Shane, and you're with me all the way from Canada via the interwebs here, and you're going to be talking about some death metal tonight, dude. I'm pretty stoked.
Hell yeah, Pete. Today we are talking about Memoriam. Now, Memoriam, they're a four-piece old-school death metal band hailing from the UK. They debuted on Nuclear Blast, but now they're with Reaper Entertainment. I'm not too familiar with Reaper Entertainment, and the only label mate that I recognized was Tankard. And I recognized them from back in the day. You know, they're an old-school band, too.
Yeah, German thrash, yeah.
Yeah, you betcha. So Memoriam was founded in 2015 by members of Bolt Thrower and Benediction, and was actually formed as a tribute to the late Bolt Thrower drummer, Martin Kitty Kearns. You know, I think it's pretty cool that out of respect for him, they retired the Bolt Thrower name.
Right.
And, you know, I was just, it got me thinking, you know, what would have happened if Metallica had done the same thing when they lost Cliff, how things would have been different, you know? But yeah, it was just something I started thinking about when I was looking at this.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So since Memoriam is composed mostly of former Bolt Thrower members, it's no surprise to anybody that they take a lot of influence from Bolt Thrower and they have that classic old school death metal sound. Right. So firstly, I'm going to go through the band lineup, talk about some of the bands they were in, the ones I recognize anyways. Then we'll talk a bit about their music and their albums. So on vocals, we have Carl Willits, and he's from Bolt Thrower, Napalm Death, and Cerebral Fix. On bass, we have Frank Healy, he's from Benediction and Cerebral Fix. On guitars, we have Scott Fairfax, and he's from Bolt Thrower. Now, they've had two drummers. The first drummer was Andrew Whale, and of course, typical drummer. He's been in a whack of bands. Not a lot that I recognize, but a couple, Killing Joke. He did something with the singer of Bad Brains. And another one that I recognize from back in the day that still pops up on my playlist is At War. Now, do you ever listen to any At War, Pete?
Oh, yeah, definitely, dude.
Yeah, they were good stuff. I still got that song, Felon's Guilt. It still rolls around in my head. So the current drummer is Spike T. Smith. He joined in 2020. He's from Bolt Thrower and Death Collector. And Death Collector, I believe they just released a new album this year. I've seen it around. I haven't checked it out. I have that on my check this shit out list. And
right. So
three of the four members here are ex-Bolt Thrower. And just like Bolt Thrower, Memoriam is war metal. So typically, lyrically, they're singing about war, loss, grief, sorrow, mourning, and just for fun, they throw in a bit of social commentary. And with the way things are going, it looks like they're never going to run out of inspiration here, because it's crazy. And originally, Memoriam, they got together to play cover tunes of their favorite old school death metal bands, songs that really influenced them the most throughout their careers. But they quickly realized that they had something special here, and they wanted to do something original. The release of their first demo was called the Hellfire Demos, and that quickly cemented the band, and they knew the direction they had to take. Now, since 2016, they've released 5 full-length albums, and they've played at a whack of festivals and shows, and it was actually you, P, who got me into Memoriam. It was in 2021, shortly after the release of their last album, titled To the End. And I believe you mentioned it on an episode of Murder Metal Mayhem and said, fans of Bolt Thrower, you know, you should really check this shit out. And Bolt Thrower, they're one of my favorite death metal bands, so this was really a no-brainer for me. You know, I think Bolt Thrower is royalty in death metal. Yeah. And their influence, it really reverberates through the death metal scene to this day. Bands aspire to the Bolt Thrower sound and groove, and they don't really have any shame in saying that, you know, Bolt Thrower is a big influence to us. No. So it's like Frozen Soul that we just did. Right. For example.
Yeah, that's true. And you're right. Bolt Thrower, just the long roots in death metal to a lot of bands, definitely paying homage to him. And like you said, not even trying to hide it. I mean, they're celebrating it, which I think is awesome. Great band.
Yeah, I think that's very cool too.
It sucks that they're not around anymore, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, they kind of are.
Right, that's true.
With Memoriam. Because the same things that made Bolt Thrower great are what make Memoriam great. I mean, their last album, latest album, called Rise to Power, it dropped in February of I was going to say of this year, but that was 2023.
Right.
Yeah, this is actually album 2 in a trilogy, and the underlying story is about a king's rise to power, so the name Rise to Power. But it's not really like a concept album with a big story arc or anything. That's just the theme. They touch on other subjects too, like the World War II Holocausts. And sound-wise, Memoriam has big dramatic riffs, driving guitars with fat, powerful grooves. They have that classic old-school death metal, double bass, lots of gnarly fills. The drumming is actually quite interesting. It has some unique beats. And he has some great cymbal work in there, which I really appreciate cymbal work.
Yeah, me too.
It's mostly mid-tempo with bursts of fury. My one gripe, the bass guitar is kind of muted. It blends in with the guitar. But other than that, the production mixing is all stellar and what you would expect from musicians of this pedigree.
Yeah, we talked about bass when we were doing the Frozen Soul episode, and I was saying how Joe Bench from Bolt Thrower, she had such a killer tone and it was so distinct that you could really hear it in the mix, and they weren't afraid to have her up in the mix.
Yeah, that's right.
And I always thought that that's what set them apart from a lot of the death metal. As a bass player, it sounds like a lot of them, it's buried in the mix because you got this huge guitar, crunch, but it's so bassy, it takes the bass away. And I've even seen death metal bands perform without bass players because their tone is so bassy, you almost really didn't need it.
Don't need it. Yeah.
When it's not there, it's not there, and that's what Joe Bench. To me, that's what Joe Bench brought to Bolt Thrower. Was that real killer bottom end. She was amazing.
So in their last album here, they weren't trying to reinvent themselves with this album, but it is a progression from their previous albums. It's a bit more refined, a bit more melodic. There are some actual clean guitar spots in it, so it's probably their least Bolt Thrower sounding album. Now, it's quite a long album. Most of the songs are 5 to 6 minutes long, and I've seen it's got a bit of criticism for that, but I like it. I think it makes it work. Just the feel of the songs, just the length makes them feel just a bit more epic and involved. Yeah, and it does move along smoothly without any dips. So the length really didn't bother me at all.
Right.
And another sick thing about Memoriam is their fucking album covers.
Yeah,
their album covers are all sick.
Yeah,
they're all done by
wicked.
The same guy as Dan Seagrave. And if it sounds familiar, he's done albums for Benediction, Dismember, Hypocrisy, and Suffocation, to name a few. So He's a big name in the album cover industry.
Right. That's sick.
So Memoriam has a few lyric videos on YouTube for the tracks Total War and Rise to Power. And we're going to play one for you here called All Is Lost. It's a long song, so we're not going to hear too much of it. But here we go, Memoriam. Right. All Is Lost, please, Pete.
All right, let me do that for you here.
Got a great growl.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, totally wish we could play more of that. That's for sure. That's killer, man. Definitely a great band.
It is.
I think that we definitely owe a lot to Bolt Thrower because they give us this, right? They keep it going, and that's awesome.
I'll say the same thing that you said when you first talked about it. If you like Bolt Thrower, go check this shit out.
Hell yeah. We'll see you guys next time.
Horns fucking high.